So I spent the greater part of my life pretending. Pretending that I had it all together, pretending, of course, that I never made mistakes, pretending that I was perfect. And I started to live what I call a partitioned life. Like a circus sideshow, I was the main event, the woman sawn in half. See, one part of me was in this box and the severed part in the other, and the two would never meet. But when you live this fractured and compartmentalized life, all you crave is wholeness. And so I have to start asking myself, when did I start silencing my one true voice? And I think maybe it was when I was 5 years old, and I was enamored with my Sunday school teacher. See, she was tall and had dark, long, flowing red hair, and a captivating yet kind and gentle personality. And I was so drawn to her. But yet, see, in that same church setting, I heard words like faggot and dyke being thrown from the pulpit so carelessly. Maybe the fracture began when I was in junior high. And my female friends, see, they would talk about crushes they had on boys and how it made them feel. And they had the butterflies in the stomach and the heart skipping a beat. And I could just stop and think, gee, that's kind of how I feel about girls. And I longed to belong, and I wanted to be normal. And so I did what anyone would do. I just tried to be like them. Or maybe it was in high school, you know, when things are a little bit awkward and nothing short of dramatic. And I think to myself, maybe, just maybe, this is exactly where it began. Because as a teenager, you know how that is. You feel so sure of yourself one minute and then so unaware the next. You just haven't a clue. You just want to fit in. And I just wanted to fit in. And so by then, I had had a few boyfriends, but I hadn't yet had my first kiss. And I longed for what my friends talked about. You remember the butterflies in the stomach and the heart skipping a beat. And so finally, at 15 years old, I knew what they were talking about. I had had my first kiss, and it was everything they said it would be. My heart began to spring alive, and it became filled with love. And I found out really quickly that love, it makes you act completely irrationally. It makes you say really stupid things. And so I couldn't help myself. I wanted to be with my crush all the time, and so I would write them silly notes day in and day out, stuffing it in their locker room, you know, and practice that every 90s kid knows so well. And we traded them and collected these notes like baseball cards, each one with a significant value. And I found a part of my voice in the words that I wrote, feeling a sense of true authenticity. And then one day I came home from school, and my parents were sitting on the couch, and I could sense very clearly that something was wrong. And they uttered the famous words that no teenager wants to hear. Sit down, we need to have a talk. They proceeded to unfold a letter ever so slowly and read the note aloud. And I shrank in embarrassment and turned 50 shades of red as I realized I recognized those words. Those words were my words. Those words were for her. So I knew something was dreadfully wrong in this room between us. And they looked at me with furrowed brows and deep concern. And they said, Angie, what is this? What does this mean? But I remember them and their eyes non-verbally saying to me, please don't be gay. And so I cried and I stammered and I fumbled and I made up some bogus story that we were pretending we were just practicing for our boyfriends. I'm pretty sure they didn't buy it. And frankly, I wouldn't have either, but I don't think that was the point because, see, they looked relieved as we entered this don't ask, don't tell way of living. And so there I was at 15 years old, staring down the cliff of vulnerability as it beckoned me to take the plunge, and instead, I just walked away. See, when you grow up in a militant and legalistic church, but you're also secretly gay, you quickly learn to assimilate, and everything else, it's just not okay. And so I learned to bury that part of me, and I learned to silence my voice. And for years, it worked. I avoided gay culture like the plague, and instead I dove head first into God and faith and art and music. It was a way, see, to express myself and hide what I was told was dirty. Instead, I developed a different part of my voice, my physical singing voice. And this became my identity. See, the struggles that I had with my identity, with faith, with sexuality, it was easy for me to pour these into song. And those songs became my prayers. And those prayers, I released the deepest parts of me that were grossly misunderstood. And it's funny because I look back and it's like I published my journal for all the world to see, but I made it just cryptic enough that they didn't quite know what I was talking about. And I think I kind of liked it that way. So then I decided to enroll in art school in Long Beach, California. I thought it would be a much-needed escape from my small town in Arizona. And I quickly learned the simple truth that I just could not hide, no matter the mask, no matter the front that I put on the outside. See, it was a creative and expressive, anything goes type of environment. And my dorm hall, it was full of people that were colorful and all walks of life, and some from the queer community. So imagine my small town shock and surprise when my neighbor down the hall, who was also a lesbian, knocks on my door the first week of school. Yo, so are you gay or what? Because a few of us are taking bets that you are. What? No, I'm straight. Why would you say that? I'm totally straight. So there I stood with my mouth hanging open, and I did what I always did. I lied. See, I couldn't be honest with someone who was like me, let alone myself, for fear of judgment and fear of losing my faith. And yet little did this girl know that I had been struggling with my sexual identity, and I had been in and out of relationships for years. And I've said this before, but the weight of being gay is not nearly as heavy as the weight of the lie. And I was tired of that lie. And I remember one night I was laying in my dorm room, and I decided to start being honest with myself. And so I laid in bed and I looked up at the ceiling and I said, I'm gay. See, something that some people don't understand is that oftentimes the first time people come out, it's actually to themselves. And right then and there, I chose to be honest, and I chose to start owning my own truth. But I knew it was just the beginning. So then fast forward, it's now the mid-2000s, it's the age of the iPod and bad haircuts, Backstreet Boys, and MySpace. And by now, I had fallen in and out of love, I had gotten my heart broken, and I now entered this newfound phase I like to call Jesus is my boyfriend. And it's funny, yeah, I know, but honestly, it was a cowardly way of avoiding the conversation of dating. It was my way of saying, this doesn't exist. Why? Because Jesus is everything. And see, it's really easy when you grow up in the Christian faith to just deny yourself and call it Christ. And so I did what anyone would do. I formed a band, and we went on tour, and we sang songs about Jesus and grace and heartache, all laced with guilt. And I buried my shame in my songs, and people called it anointed. And I no longer lived this partitioned life because, you know why? To me, this box was dead. I believed that lie for so long that it no longer existed. But the thing is, when you silence your own voice, it eventually finds a way to come out. So 6 years ago, to this exact day that I'm actually standing on this stage, I stood in a very long line to audition for a TV show called The Voice. And I had made it just in the final round right before it aired. And those of us that had made it this far, we were taken to this production room full of lights and camera crew. They wanted to know our story because, of course, that's how reality TV works. And so I sat there and I shared a bit of who I was, and they asked one simple, unassuming question. Is there anyone special in your life? Easy enough question, right? Except, why were my palms sweaty, and why did my thoughts race, and why did I feel so anxious all of a sudden? And so I hesitated, and I thought, and I blurted out, yeah, and she's amazing. And my heart raced, and I thought, oh shit, what did I just do? I may have just come out on national television, and my own parents don't even know that I'm gay. But I couldn't take it back. My words, they were hanging in the air like a cloud. And so I just let them. And after rigorous audition practicing and bad eating habits, little to no sleep, I started to experience pain in my vocal cords. This honestly was something I had been growing quite accustomed to. And even years prior, while touring with my band, I frequently became hoarse. And I distinctly remember having a conversation with my sister about it, to which she replied, Angie, you need to start speaking your truth. She then talked about the throat chakra and how it represents speaking your truth. And she talked about how when you're out of alignment and that energy flow is blocked, it results in real physical problems. I remember thinking to myself, first, what the hell is a throat chakra? And second, I'm fine. But my body told me otherwise. So later that year, I stepped into a vocal booth to record a track for a friend, and I was singing loudly over and over again when I felt a pain. I knew I did something wrong. The next day, I lost my voice, but I thought, it'll come back. It always does. But the next day was the same, the next week still, and the month after that, and the month after that, it was nowhere to be found. And so I resorted to communicating with text messages and notepads, and I found myself deeply worried. Did I damage my voice forever? What if it never came back? And slowly, as you can tell, my talking voice came back. But I found that it had its very real limitations. See, it was hard, and it still is to this day, to talk in noisy environments, and singing was completely out of the question. And I found myself out of commission for the next 3 to 4 years. And in my heart and in my gut, I was deeply grieving. See, to you, singing might just be singing, or it might equate bad karaoke. But to me, singing was my identity, and my voice was my loyal and faithful companion on this isolated and fractured journey. So without this, who am I? Without my voice, who am I? Who am I? See, most of us don't even make room to ask ourselves those kinds of questions. We'd rather not deal. But my life was begging me to. And I was living with my girlfriend at the time, who was soon to be my fiance and now my amazing wife. And I knew that for her sake and for mine, I needed to start telling the truth, and I needed to tell it to those around me. And so I revisited that imaginary sideshow, and I took the severed boxes out. Both faith and sexuality lay before me, and I put the saw down. And I used my words to write a very different letter that day that would once again find itself in the hands of my parents. Except for this time, when the cliff of vulnerability beckoned me to take the plunge, I willingly took the jump. Thank you.